Hello everybody and welcome back to Dollar Tree Dinners and welcome to the third and final episode of Eating for $25 a week from Dollar Tree. There's a chance that this video will be delayed. In order to get this up on Saturday, I'd have to edit it on Friday, and I have a few things to take care of this weekend, so most likely you're seeing this on Tuesday. Today is the 7th and final day. So we covered all the cooking in the first two episodes, and this third part is mostly just to be my final thoughts, kind of a brief recap, and also just talking about how I felt and if there was anything I would have done differently. Hindsight is of course 2020. But before we get into that, let's heat up some breakfast because today is day 7. I did only make 4 burritos on my second batch because I made them a little bit bigger. So let me heat this up in the microwave and then we'll chat about breakfast. So for the entire 7 days, I have been eating this same breakfast burrito. This is sausage, lentils, and potatoes. We added some seasoning blend and some diced tomatoes and green chilies to kind of be like a bit of a salsa, but there's like no cheese or taco sauce or anything like that. So it is a bit of a drier burrito, but it's held up really well. I froze half of the filling and I made a fresh batch of tortillas about halfway through the week. You know what? 7 days in and I still think that this is the best breakfast that I could have possibly made with the ingredients at Dollar Tree. So as far as the breakfast goes, could not change a thing. I did get a little tired of it. It was on the 5th day and it was because I just really wasn't feeling that great and I knew I needed to make another batch of homemade flour tortillas. And I feel like that just kind of drained the energy out of me, you know, having to wake up and make tortillas and then eat the same breakfast that I had already eaten the past 4 days. Because the breakfast itself I wasn't tired of, but I feel like it was because I had to put in all of this energy and effort just to eat the same thing that made me feel a little tired of it on the 5th day. But again, it still held up really good. And we basically made 8 days worth of breakfast with that singular batch of food. Even after 7 days of eating this breakfast burrito on repeat, I can still come out of it saying I like these and I would absolutely make them again, which I feel like is the best testimony I can give to how good these actually turned out. Because if I can eat them for a week straight and still want to make them again, then I think we did a really good job on those. Now I did make these breakfast burritos a little bit different this time. They're all the same ingredients. I just chose to make 4 larger burritos instead of 8 smaller ones. So I feel like the last set of burritos I made were like mini burritos and these ones are about the size of my hand. I wanted some tortillas that I could fry to try them as like a topping for the tamale chili. And I thought that the best way to do that without having to make a completely separate batch of tortillas was just to take my normal tortilla recipe, divide it into 6 portions and make 4 of them into breakfast burritos and then use the other 2 to fry as a topping. So that's a recap of breakfast for the entire week. We're gonna talk about lunches real quick while I reheat some red beans and rice. I do the rice in the container. I just kind of pop the lid a little bit so it can vent, and then I microwave it for 60 seconds. And I'll do something kind of similar with the red beans portion of the red beans and rice. Just kind of pop the lid a little bit, but this one will get about 1.5 to 2 minutes in the microwave. So these little pucks of pre-cooked rice that I've been keeping in the fridge are actually my favorite takeaway from this week. As somebody who often cooks for 2 people, it's hard to cook just a small amount of rice, but I have absolutely loved having these in the fridge ready to go in microwave. And I think that that just might be something I end up just doing anytime I need to cook rice, just having it on hand, pre-cooked, ready to microwave. And here is our red beans. Now let's have some lunch together while I chat about the rest of the meals that I made. So in this series, I cooked 3 dinners that made 4 portions each. We did a Cajun Alfredo pasta, we did a tamale chili, and we did this red beans and rice. And I saved this red beans and rice for the final day because of all of those three things, this one was hands down my favorite. I will say that your perception of meals can change after you've eaten them several days in a row. And I feel like that's how I felt about that Cajun pasta, because it started out really good, and then the more I ate it, the less I wanted to eat it. I have a theory on why that is. Hold on a second. Day 4. This one is still good. Well, 4th day of eating it. So the reason I think I had feelings about that Cajun pasta was because it was very similar to a meal I used to make in my early 20s. Not totally identical, but back in the day when I was struggling and I didn't really quite know how to cook, and I really just needed things that I could take with me for lunches. There used to be a meal that I would make with pasta, any kind of small pasta. I think often I'd use shells, and I would cook up a box of that. I would pair it with 2 jars of pre-made Alfredo sauce, some frozen broccoli, and then I would do some kind of like a panko, like crunchy breadcrumb topping on it. And I would just bake that in the oven. And it usually made about 8 servings at a time. And that would be, you know, something I would kind of meal prep for the week. But I think that era in my life, because I ate that meal so often because it was cheap, I could make 8 servings of that for like around $8 at the time. It kind of tainted Alfredo for me a little bit. So the more I ate that Cajun Alfredo, the more I was kind of taken back to that specific meal that I ate so much. And so by the 3rd day of eating the Cajun Alfredo, I was a little bit over it because it just has history for me, I guess you could say. I'm wondering if that's why I like this red beans and rice so much though, because this was something I did not make in my early 20s and I didn't even really know it existed back then. So this is actually kind of a completely new meal for me. I've never had red beans and rice before I made them for this week, but I think there's something to the degree of it also being a new recipe for me or a new meal that makes it a little bit more exciting, even when you're eating it for days on end. The 3rd one was the tamale chili, and like I said, that one was good, but I did kind of feel like it was missing something. So when I made a fresh batch of tortillas for the breakfast burritos, I saved 2 of them so that I could cut them up, fry them in some oil, add a little bit of salt, and use them as a crunchy topping for that tamale chili. I do think that helped, but I still wish it was corn chips. I still wish it was Fritos, specifically like the Frito style corn chips. Within the realm of the ingredients I had available and being able to make a similar kind of salty, crunchy topping, I think that worked really well. So now after having eaten all 3 meals, kind of 7 days in a row, I can definitively say that the red beans and rice was my favorite, the tamale chili was my 2nd favorite, and the Alfredo pasta was my least favorite. But again, that's just because she and I have history. I think my taste buds still remember those days. I think my taste buds still remember eating that specific meal on repeat over and over and over again. I'm gonna finish my red beans and rice, and then we'll make our final dinner for the week. And as many of you guys know, I saved the best for last, kind of literally and figuratively. The final meal that I planned was this egg roll in a bowl. A subscriber of mine turned me onto this meal a couple of years ago, and I've really enjoyed it ever since. It's just a base of plain white rice, and then you take one of these Dollar Tree egg rolls, you cook it, you chop it up, you put it over the rice, and these little egg rolls come with a packet of sweet and sour sauce, and you drizzle that on top, and it's delicious, it's filling, it has a really great flavor, really great texture. I've had a few people tell me that this is actually duck sauce, not sweet and sour sauce. I believe the packaging used to say sweet and sour, now it just says sauce packet. So you guys are probably right, it is probably duck sauce, but regardless, I love this meal, it's one of my favorites. And I did kind of partially thaw the egg roll just so it doesn't have a bunch of ice crystals on the outside. Back when I had an air fryer, I would just do it in the air fryer, but I don't have one, so I'm gonna do just a small amount of oil in a very small skillet, And we're just gonna make sure that this egg roll is really hot and crispy. Then we're going to chop it up into small pieces. These egg rolls are incredibly delicious, packed with cabbage and onions and carrots. I personally really like the shrimp flavor. And then, of course, I heated up one of my little rice pucks. That's so satisfying, by the way. Got our rice. We're gonna top it with our crispy egg roll. Make sure we get all of that off of our knife and cutting board. And then our duck sauce. I think it actually is duck sauce. All right. And that is the finale of 21 meals for $25. A Dollar Tree egg roll in a bowl. I am so excited about this egg roll in a bowl. We've talked about the individual meals. Now let's talk about the week as a whole. But first, let me grab myself a good bite of this. This is such a fun and delicious way to end the week. This is just water, by the way. I tried to approach this one differently than I normally do, and I feel like I've kind of communicated a lot of the subtle nuances that I kind of worked into the scenario. So I tried to make my portions as large as possible. I tried to integrate some pantry staples into it. We'll go over shortly what we have left at the end of the week. And I tried to integrate a celebratory meal because in the past when I've done these, I always get asked, you know, once the week is over, what are you going to do to celebrate? I understand that question and I get it, but the folks that I'm trying to help with these videos don't get to go out to a steak dinner after the week is over. I think one of the times I did it, I celebrated with some ice cream. Even that might be out of reach for somebody. So I tried to integrate into the $25 a kind of celebratory note at the very end. You know, one really unique and fun meal. And for me, that was the egg roll in a bowl. For you, it might be something different. So the week as a whole, I feel like went really well. I did try to look at it very methodically in terms of how much food do I need to make. You know, like I said, I broke it down to 1 breakfast for the entire week, 3 dinners that made 4 servings each, and 2 kind of bonus meals. And I feel like that structure works really well, especially on paper, but I lived it for the week and I can tell you that it does kind of mentally wear on you to be eating the same things on repeat all week. You know, I kind of talked about it earlier with the Cajun Alfredo pasta and how that one kind of started to feel like a struggle meal to me, whereas the red beans and rice did not feel like a struggle meal to me just because that one was very new to me and exciting. I feel like if I had to rate the week as a whole, I'd give it a 7 out of 10. I feel like it was a really solid attempt. I wish we could have integrated some more variety. I'm sure that there are ways we could have integrated some more variety, but what I really wanted at the end of the week was food that you could roll over into the next week. And that's why this one looked really different than what I would usually do, because, you know, in the past when I've done these, I've just tried to get just enough food to get by. Like if at the end of it, I have like 1 or 2 things left over, I feel like I did a really good job with the budget, but that's the cost, you know? The cost is I had a lot more variety and kind of fun with some of those menus. And with this menu, it was more about being strategic and trying to make sure that at the end of the week, we had as much food left over as possible so that alleviates some financial strain for the following week, if that makes sense. So I hope I've communicated all of this really well over the course of these 3 videos. I'm gonna go ahead and finish my egg roll in a bowl, and let me show you everything we have left over. So at the end of the week, we still have about a half bag of brown lentils. I still have, I'm pretty sure, 5.5 bouillon cubes, so you wouldn't need to repurchase that for at least another week or 2. Of course, we used some of our Cajun seasoning, but we didn't use all of it. I'd say we used maybe about a third of this bottle, somewhere between a half and a third. So I did finish off this bag of rice because I needed to cook some more rice, and there was about 2 cups left in the bag, which is the minimum I have to cook in my rice cooker. But I do have some leftover cooked rice, 2 more pucks ready to go. And the pinto beans, I did cook up that whole bag, which made 4 servings. I only used 2, so the other 2 got stuck in my freezer. I still have a half bag of our frozen seasoning blend. And I still have, let's say we have about a third of this flour left, because I made 2 batches of flour tortillas, but I definitely have enough in here to make a third. It's a little less than half the bag. Let's just say a third. Then there's about 7 cups of flour in a 2-pound bag, somewhere between 6.5 and 7. And we used a 1.5 cups for 2 batches of burritos, so 3, and then we needed extra flour for rolling. So yeah, we have somewhere between 2 to 3 cups of flour left in this bag. So I did integrate some pantry items. So here is all of that laid out. So not only did we do 21 meals for $25, this is all of the food that you would have to roll over into the second week, again, to alleviate some of that financial strain if you're in a position where you're trying to make the most of every dollar. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 ingredients that you would have to work with next week and kind of build a menu off of that. I would love to carry this over and do a second week and purchase another 20 ingredients and kind of build upon this. But sadly, I do have to go to VidCon next week, which is from Wednesday to Sunday. So I don't have time to do a second week between now and then. But I'm gonna be completely honest with you guys. I don't know what my schedule is gonna look like over the next month or so. We are getting into the summer months, which means we might be having the kids more often. And so I'm kind of trying to navigate that mentally for a little bit. So I don't wanna make a big commitment until I have an idea of what the schedule is gonna look like in the summer months. But I hope that this series was helpful. I hope you got some good ideas. What I do wanna do, maybe over the next few days, I am going to be posting the recipes individually as shorts, so that's going to be coming up. I'm probably going to try to put together a free printable with a shopping list and the recipes. That is something I want to work on over the next week or so. So what's to come is shorts of all of the individual recipes, potentially a printable that goes along with this, kind of explaining the recipes, something you have a physical in front of you, and I offer those completely free of charge. I do have a link to all of my printables. I'll leave them in the description box below. There's not a ton on there, but I'm hoping to have more soon, and I'm gonna add this to that list as well. Before we end this video, let me know what you guys thought. How do we do with our $25 budget at Dollar Tree? Do you feel like, I feel like we did really good. I mean, the amount of food that we have left over should be an indication that we did a fantastic job with that budget. But I want to know you guys' thoughts. What was your favorite meal of anything that I made? Or if you've tried any of them since I posted it, because I know it's been, because by the time this video is up, it will have been about a week since I started this series. So some of you might have made some of the meals and tried them yourselves. And if you have, I would love to know your feedback. But I hope you guys are having a fantastic day, fantastic week, and I will see you again soon. I'm not sure when my next video will be out because of VidCon, but again, I will see you again soon.